Assalamualaikum everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to study about disorder of methionine metabolism leading to homocystinuria and homocystenemia. First of all, we will study what methionine and homocysteine are. So methionine, we know that it is an amino acid. It is a sulfur containing amino acid which serve as an intermediate in the biosynthesis of homocysteine and cysteine. This is the structure of methionine. As you can see, this is amino group, this is carboxylic group, and this is the side chain. Okay, the side chain contains this sulfur atom. This is the whole structure of methionine. Here, the same amino group, carboxylic group, and side chain contains what? The sulfur atom. So this methionine, it acts as an intermediate in the biosynthesis of homocysteine and cysteine. Moving on to word homocysteine. Homocysteine, it is also a sulfur containing amino acid which is derived from methionine. It can be converted either into cysteine or it can be converted back into methionine with the help of specific vitamins. These vitamins involve vitamin B12, vitamin B9, vitamin B6 that we will study later on. This is the structure of homocysteine. Again, this is a amino group, this is carboxylic group, and this is the side chain. The side chain contains this sulfur atom. Okay, this is the linear open structure. Here you can see this is a amino group, this is carboxylic group, this is the side chain, and the side chain contains what? A sulfur atom. Okay, so this is an amino acid. Homocysteine is an amino acid, and likewise methionine, it contains sulfur. Okay, and it can be converted either into homocysteine or it can be recycled into methionine with the help of certain vitamin B's. So this is the normal pathway. This is the whole pathway that shows how methionine, it is converted into homocysteine, how homocysteine produces cysteine, and then how homocysteine converts again into methionine. Okay, so this is the whole pathway, normal pathway. So this normal pathway, it starts with methionine. As I have told you that this is the structure of methionine, this is the amino group, this is carboxylic group, and this is the side chain containing sulfur atom. Okay, so the first step is that this methionine, it reacts with ATP by enzyme S-adenosyl methionine synthase, and it produces S-adenosyl methionine, or it is also written as SAM, S-adenosyl methionine. So what happens is that we know that ATP means adenosine triphosphate, which means that it contains three phosphates, three inorganic phosphate group. Okay, so what happens that with the help of enzyme this S-adenosyl methionine synthase, three phosphate groups are removed from ATP. So what is left behind from ATP? The ribose sugar and this adenine base. These two collectively are known as what? Adenosine. Okay, so here simply methionine reacts with ATP and produce S-adenosyl methionine. So this adenosine, whole chunk of adenosine which has come from ATP, it binds with methionine and produces what? S-adenosyl methionine. Okay, so this S-adenosyl methionine, also known as SAM, it is considered to be as a methyl donor. It is a universal methyl donor, which means that it has tendency to donate this methyl group to acceptor molecule. So X means acceptor molecule here. It can be either DNA, RNA, proteins, amino acids, phospholipids. Okay, so these acceptor molecules, they can accept this methyl group which is donated by this SAM, okay, and then produce S-adenosyl homocysteine. Here you can see methyl group is attached with the sulfur atom in SAM, but in SAH, that is S-adenosyl homocysteine, there is no methyl group. Methyl group is absent because it has donated the methyl group to acceptor molecule, which can either be the DNA, RNA, protein, phospholipids, amino acids, anything. Okay, So in next step, what happens is that this adenosine molecule, it is removed. This whole chunk of adenosine molecule which came from ATP, it is removed. Okay, it is given off, and what is left behind? Only this homocysteine. Okay, so this homocysteine is produced from S-adenosine methyl homocysteine. Okay, and then what happens is that with the help of water, adenosine is released, and then it produces what? Homocysteine. So this homocysteine, it can be again converted, it can be directly converted into methionine again by enzyme methionine synthase. And this enzyme, it requires a cofactor, that is vitamin B12. Okay. So how homocysteine arranges this methionine? So this homocysteine, it is directly converting to methionine by tetrahydrofolate. Okay. This is a Liter cycle that initiates with this stuff, that is homocysteine, and converts back into methionine. So what happens is that this is tetrahydrofolate, and tetrahydrofolate, it is converting into 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate. Means that in tetrahydrofolate, methyl group has been added at 5th and 10th position, and it produces what? 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate. And with the help of enzyme methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, it produces 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay, and then this 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, it is converted into N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, and this methyl group from tetrahydrofolate, this tetrahydrofolate will give out this methyl group, and this methyl group will actually be added into the homocysteine and produces what? Methionine. Okay, as you can see, the whole structure is similar: carboxyl group, amino group, that is side chain. But here with the sulfur atom, here is a hydrogen atom, but in the place of hydrogen, what comes? That is methyl group. Okay, so this methyl group, it came from N methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is converted to tetrahydrofolate, and then this methyl group, it is added into homocysteine, and it produces methionine by enzyme methionine synthase. Okay, and this methionine synthase, it requires a cofactor, that is vitamin B12. And next step, what happens is that this homocysteine combines with serine, and it produces cystathionine by enzyme cystathionine beta synthase. Okay, and the water is given off, water molecule is given off, and the cofactor of this enzyme is the vitamin B6. Okay, which means that if our body contains an adequate amount of vitamin B6, if its level is sufficient, this means that the enzyme is working properly. Okay, if vitamin B12 is in enough amount, which means that the methionine synthase is working properly, so homocysteine can successfully be converted into methionine. Similarly, this cofactor, this is required for the activity of enzyme. If cofactor is working properly, then enzyme will work properly, and the stuff will take place. Okay, the conversion will take place. Successful conversion will take place. So homocysteine, it will be converted into cystathionine, and then by help of enzyme cystathionine lyase, it will be converted into cysteine. And this enzyme requires a cofactor, that is vitamin B6. Okay, and then eventually the cysteine will be converted into glutathione. Okay, so this whole small cycle, it is known as remethylation. Why it is termed as remethylation? Because the methyl group is again added into methionine. Okay. First of all, from this methionine, when it produces SAM, S-adenosine methionine, then it produces what? S-adenosine homocysteine. The methyl group is removed from S-adenosine methionine to produce S-adenosine homocysteine. But here again methyl group is added. Okay, so that's why this step is known as remethylation step. So this is the whole normal pathway that shows that how methionine produces homocysteine, and how homocysteine can be directly converted back into methionine with this remethylation pathway or this folate cycle, and then how homocysteine is converted into cysteine with a bunch of enzymes and cofactors involved. So it is another pathway. So this pathway starts with, as I have told you, that this pathway starts with this, how methionine is converted into homocysteine, homocysteine back into methionine, and then the little, that is folate pathway, gets initiated. So what happens is that when we obtain vitamin B9 from a diet, when we consume vitamin B9, that is folic acid Formaldehyde, it is converted into dihydrofolate, and that is converted into tetrahydrofolate, and then it produces 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate. With the help of enzyme methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, it is reduced, methyl group is one removed, and it is converted into 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. And then this 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, it will convert it into tetrahydrofolate, and in this reaction with the help of methionine synthase, which requires cofactor vitamin B12, this will give its methyl group to homocysteine, and it will be converted into methionine. Okay, and then methionine will be converted into SAM, and then acetylinosyl homocysteine, and then again homocysteine. And this SAM, it is required for reaction of DNA methylation. Okay. Similarly, when this 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate, when it is converted back into dihydrofolate, then this reaction is involved in production of DNA synthesis. So this means that this reaction, this pathway, it is also involved in the methylation of DNA as well as the production of DNA. Okay. Okay. So what happens in homocystenuria? In homocystenuria, there is actually accumulation of this homocysteine in our body. Okay, the homocysteine in our body gets accumulated up to toxic level. Its level increases in our body. How its level increase in our body? There are many possibilities in this. Okay, so in the case of classical homocystinuria, what happens is that, as you can see, that this enzyme, that is cystathionine beta synthase enzyme, it is not working properly. Okay, the enzyme is deficient, it is not working properly. Okay, so if enzyme is not working properly, then homocysteine will not be converting to cystathionine, and then it will not be converting to cysteine. So obviously if homocysteine fails to convert into cystathionine, then obviously it will start to get accumulated. Okay, its level will increase in the body. Or if there is deficiency of vitamin B6 in the body, which means that vitamin B6 is not in adequate amount. Okay, it is not in enough quantity, which means that if its cofactor is not present, then obviously its enzyme will not work properly. This is that thione beta synthase will not working properly, which means that homocysteine will not be converting to cystathione, and then eventually it will increase the level of homocysteine in our blood and as well as urine. Okay, so which will lead to classical homocystinuria. Okay. Okay, so this is what happens in homocystinuria. So what happens in homocystinemia? So in homocystinemia, what happens is that this enzyme, that is methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, it is deficient. Okay, this enzyme is not working properly. So the normal function of this enzyme was to convert 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate into 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, which then produces methyl tetrahydrofolate, which donates its methyl group to homocysteine. So that homocysteine can be converted into what? Back into methionine. So if there is deficiency in methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, okay, so what happens is that obviously 5,10-methylene tetrahydrofolate, it will not be converted into 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay, so it means that obviously if it is not being converted into 5 tetrahydrofolate, then it will not produce methyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay, then what? Then tetrahydrofolate will not produce. This homocysteine will not get methylated. Methyl group will not be added into homocysteine, and it will not produce methionine. Okay, so in this case also, in the case of homocystinemia, there is also an increased level of homocysteine in your body. Okay, it is characterized by the elevated level of homocysteine. So in classical homocystinuria, what happens is that this cystathionine beta synthase is not working properly. Okay, so homocysteine fails to convert into cystathionine, or its cofactor is not working properly. It is not in adequate amount. So in homocystinemia, there is deficiency in this methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme, which means that shortly it will not add methyl group to this homocysteine to convert into methionine. So therefore, the level of homocysteine will increase. Why? Because it is not converted into methionine. The remethylation is not taking place. The whole this small cycle is stopped, which will lead to elevated level of homocysteine. So this also leads to homocystenemia. So, as I have told you that this methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, it is involved in the production of DNA, in this DNA synthesis and as well as DNA methylation, okay? And it is also involved in the cell cycle, cell division and tissue growth, okay? So, it means that this folic acid and this methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, if it is working properly, then it can produce DNA. It can methylate DNA. Okay, so it can successfully cause tissue growth as well as cell division. Okay, so it is very important for fetal growth and development during pregnancy. Okay, so if there is any defect in the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase or in folate pathway, then obviously DNA synthesis will not take place, or impaired or defective DNA synthesis will take place. Okay, or DNA methylation will not take place, or there will be defective DNA methylation, which will ultimately lead to what? Neural tube defects and miscarriages and pregnancy problems, etc. So what happens is that if the folic acid, if in the mother of the pregnant woman, if she's not taking vitamin B9, vitamin B12, folic acid is absent in her body, there is a deficiency of folic acid in her body, and as well as methylene tetrahydrofolate, this enzyme is not working properly. Then obviously the DNA will not get enough methylated, okay? It will be hypomethylated. Hypo means less. So DNA will be not get methylated, it will be less methylated. That will lead to hypomethylation of this of DNA. Okay, and which means that homocysteine will not be converted, or enough homocysteine will not be converted into methionine. Okay, so so if B12, this is cobalamin cofactor. Okay, so if B12 is not working properly, if there is a deficiency of B12, okay, then obviously homocysteine, it will not be converted back into methionine. Okay, and then there will be increased level of homocysteine. So there are many possibilities that leads to homocystinuria and homocystenemia. Okay, so if the one possibility is that homocysteine beta cystathionine beta synthase is not working properly. Homocysteine level increases. Methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase is not working properly. It is deficient. Okay, it is unregulated, which means that homocysteine will not get enough methylated, or it will not be converted into methionine. Okay, if its cofactor is not working properly, which means that this methionine synthase is not working properly, then obviously homocysteine will not be converted into methionine. Then, as I told you that this folate metabolism, it is involved in the production of DNA, in the methylation of DNA. And obviously, if this folate pathway it is not working properly, then there will be defects in fetal growth development. Okay, that will lead to abnormal births, miscarriages, neural tube defects. So this is the pathway, the full steps that are involved in the pathway. If you want to read it, you can pause the video and read it, or you can take screenshot of it and then read it later. Okay, so here are this vitamin B12. It is required for methionine synthase. Vitamin B6, it requires to convert tetrahydrofolate to methyl tetrahydrofolate. Vitamin B2, it is required for the methyl tetrahydrofolate activity, and B9 required for the folic acid conversion of dihydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate. Okay, so obviously if these enzymes are not working properly, they are defective enzyme, the level are not enough, then obviously it will fail. The enzyme will not work properly, and then alternatively ultimately what happens that the level of homocysteine will increase. Okay, so what is homocystinuria? As I have told you, homocystinuria, it is disorder of methionine metabolism leading to an abnormal accumulation of homocysteine and its metabolites in both blood and urine. Okay, it is caused due to deficiency of cystathionine beta synthase enzyme that causes vitamin B6 to metabolize the amino acid homocysteine and serine, which results in the buildup of homocysteine and other toxins that damage the nervous system, which includes the brain and as well as the vascular system. Homocystinemia. It is the condition in which characterized by the elevated level of homocysteine metabolite in blood. Okay. Hyperhomocystenemia, it is a medical condition characterized by the abnormally high level of homocysteine in the blood, conventionally described as above 15 micromole per liter. So what are causes? As I've told you that in classical homocystinuria there is the absence of cystathionine beta synthase, and it is characterized by poor growth and development in infants. Or there might be deficiency in 5-termethylene tetrahydrofolate reductase enzyme in homocystinemia, which is caused by deficiency of MTHFR, which catalyzes the conversion of N-termethylene tetrahydrofolate to N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is needed to convert it homocysteine to methionine. It results in homocystinemia, which is characterized by elevated level of homocysteine. So, role in folate metabolism. So, what happens, as I've told you, that methyl tetrahydrofolate, this is an enzyme that is important in folate metabolism pathway. Okay, the folate metabolism pathway that plays important role in DNA methylation, DNA synthesis, cell division, tissue growth, especially in rapidly dividing cells. It is also important for normal fetal growth and development. During pregnancy, thus a defective folate metabolism could result in an impaired DNA synthesis. DNA synthesis will not take properly, or DNA methylation involved in the mutilation process. Okay. Or if there is absence of the mutation in MTHFR gene and low folate level concentration decreases the activity of enzyme can lead to hypomethylation. Okay, then hypomethylation of homocysteine to methionine. Homocysteine will not get enough methylated so that it can be converted into methionine, enhancing the impaired of folate metabolism. Or there may be the cobalamin cofactor metabolism defects, or in the deficiency of vitamin B6, vitamin B9, vitamin B12. So obviously if these vitamins are not present, the cofactor is not working properly, that enzyme will not work properly, and it ultimately leads to increased level of homocysteine. So this is another pathway that shows that how homocysteine produces methionine, methionine produces homocysteine, and the defects like if this pathway is not working properly, if the enzyme is not working properly, then what happens? The homocysteine level will increase. Cystathionine beta synthase is not working properly. Homocysteine will not be converting into methionine. Okay? If vitamin B12 is not working properly, then this enzyme that is methionine synthase will not work properly. Homocysteine will not be converted into methionine. So, inheritance pattern. So, genetically, homocystinuria, it is autosomal recessive disorder. That means that child must get a copy of mutated gene from both parents in order to develop the disorder. Affected child have carrier parents both which can transfer the mutated copy of gene to the child. As it is also autosomal recessive disorder, so 25% of chances of homocystinuria, 50% of chances that there might be a carrier of defective gene but will not express symptoms. 25% chance of being unaffected. So this is 50% is 25% child is healthy, 50%, 25% sorry, affected, and 50% healthy. Signs and symptoms. So signs and symptoms include nearsightedness, dislocation of lenses in the eyes, osteoporosis or weakening of bones, abnormal blood clots, developmental problems. As in, so this is your lens in the eye which is dislocated. So this is one of the symptoms of homocystinuria and homocystinemia, that is dislocation of lens. Osteoporosis, that is bone with the normal matrix. Okay, but as bone with osteoporosis, it becomes more porous. Scoliosis, the abnormal curve of the spine. Okay, the spine bends into curve-like structure, resulting in scoliosis. Or the chest, this is a cave-like structure. Okay, the chest becomes, or there is some deformities in the chest. Okay, so other symptoms include learning disabilities, scoliosis, long spindly arms and legs, chest deformities, head movement and gait abnormalities, failure to thrive, megaloblastic anemia. which involve larger than normal RBCs, intellectual disabilities, and seizures. So, what happens is that when there is an increased level of homocysteine in blood, that will alternatively lead to, indirectly leads to the condition that is hypercoagulability, which means that there is an increased level of blood clotting factors in the blood. So blood clots will form more easily, more fastly than it should. So during pregnancy, if the mother is not taking folic acid, if there is a deficiency of vitamin B9, B12, B6, so what happens is that there might be a chance that there is a hypercoagulability in her blood. So there might be a chance a small blood clots blocks the blood vessels of placenta. Okay, so which means that it results in miscarriages. So as I told you that the folate cycle, it is involved in the normal fetal growth and development. So if methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase is not working properly or some vitamins is not working properly, then obviously there will be growth and developmental issues, which leads to neural tubes defect and anencephaly. So neural tubes defects are growth of birth defects of spinal cord. Normally, the neural tube is responsible for the formation of spinal cord. In anencephaly, what happens is anencephaly that this is a normal brain, there is a normal growth, normal development of brain, but what happens in this condition, there is no brain formation. Okay, the brain will not properly form, which results in infant death and congenital defects. So, as I told you that folic acid, it is required for production of neural tube. Okay, it is required for the early development, for the proper formation of neural tube. So, if there is deficiency of folic acid, deficiency of vitamin B9, B12 in the mother, as these vitamins are required by enzymes that convert homocysteine back into methionine. So if there is deficiency of vitamin B9, B12, folic acid, and what happens is that homocysteine will not be converted into methionine. Okay, then hence what happens is that it will start to accumulate. Okay, it will result into major birth defects such as spina bifida, neural tube defects. So there are three types of spina bifida. The most serious is myelomeningocele. Okay, what happens is that, as you can see, a sac of fluid protrudes from the back, from the spinal cord. Okay, and then from this back, a pack of fluid, spinal fluid accumulates, as well as the bunch of spinal cords, the damaged spinal cords and nerves also gets involved in it. Okay, so this is the most serious type of spina bifida, that is myelomeningocele. The other mild one is meningocele. Okay, as you can see, there is a sac of spinal fluid filled with spinal fluid that protrude from the back, but there are no spinal cords, no damaged spinal nerves. Okay, okay. So this is the mildest type of the spina bifida. Okay, it is sometimes known as hidden spina bifida. Okay, it is termed as spina bifida occulta. So what happens is that, as you can see, there is no gap, there is no spinal fluid, no sac, no damaged nerves that are surrounding the spinal cord. Okay, so the spinal cord and the nerves, they are normal, and it is not discovered until late childhood or adulthood, and it normally does not cause any disabilities. Okay, diagnosis. So blood test quantifies the concentration of homocysteine in plasma. Classification of hyperhomocystenemia is classified according to serum concentration. Moderate is 15 to 30, intermediate is 30 to 100, and severe is greater than 100. Treatment. Unfortunately, there is no such cure for homocystinuria. However, the condition can be managed with dietary restrictions, supplements, and medication. So our topic is finished. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Allah Hafiz.